All right. Hello and welcome to the Coach's Corner brought to you by the Endurance Lab, where you can join us, recap the week, and answer your questions from the forum. My name is Jason Flores, one of your Endurance Lab coaches, and today I'm joined by Mitch Dingerman and our nutritional therapist, Andrea Cullen. Good morning, you two.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are
Morning.
you?
Excellent. We are going to go start off straight over to in the cupboard with Andrea. Always interesting things around the kitchen for Andrea. And I know you were showing us something before the show. Let's see if we could share that and kind of chat about what you were making in your project this week.
Oh, what I'm making in my
Yeah.
project. Oh, witchcraft. Yeah, so I'm on a day off and I went collecting a herb called
Oh,
Meadowsweet
yes. Yeah.
when I took my doggy for a walk. So I was making Meadowsweet cordial, which is like Mother Nature's original aspirin, and it's also amazing for an acidy tummy and healing stomach ulcers and helping fevers and all sorts. So that's brewed and in the kitchen now. So yeah, which
Nice.
was fun. It's nice to have a day off and just connect back into nature because I'm always running past these meadowsweet flowers thinking it's like they're teasing me because I know I got to get out there and do something with them. So things that I have in the cupboard, I'm gonna go in an order that will bring us into our first topic. So I'm gonna reverse back and first talk about something that must come up for a lot of people, which is now my shoes don't stink, but the other person in the house, they might get a bit stinky now and again from racing and training. And if you go onto the world of the internet and blogs and forums, it's obviously a topic that's coming up a lot for people, which is how to stop your training shoes getting really, really stinky. So I did the quickest one first last week as a trial. Someone said, stick them in the freezer. It doesn't work.
In the freezer?
So-
It's okay. Freezer would be the first.
Yeah, I think they were kind of along the lines of it will kill bacteria, but I think anyone with a science background knows that it takes a bit more than that.
Yeah.
So that didn't really make any difference. So my next strategy is because I have an office full of aromatherapy products, I'm gonna make my own aromatherapy.
Nice.
And I know from a science base, aromatherapy is incredibly powerful for killing bacteria, viruses, funguses, yeast, you name it. So I just hold up a generic recipe, which was lavender, lemon, peppermint, tea tree. But eucalyptus also comes up, and you use that and baking soda.
Yeah.
So real quick, is it because he's a triathlete that his shoes smell, and he refuses to get off the bike to?
To pee.
I'm sure that happens for a lot of people, but I think the major problem we have in Ireland is it's incredibly humid lately, so things don't get to dry fast enough.
Yeah.
And that seems to be coming up in the advice tips is about getting your shoes to dry as quickly as possible so that they don't have a chance to kind of allow things to grow in the dampness.
You know, if Justin Wagner was here, or I guess if he could ride a bike too, right? If he was here, he would talk about a shoe dryer that he has. Because
we have one of those.
You guys they're like these.
Do you? Is it good?
Mitch, you have one there, or you have one for like your boots and stuff for like when you guys go out in the snow too, right? That's what it's used for, primary use, right?
It's you can put ours. I think you can put gloves, you can put shoes, you put all kinds of stuff on it. It's basically got little cylinders, and you prop the things on it, and then the air goes out.
Yeah.
Because I mean we do have winter here, and the boots get wet.
Yeah.
And gloves, but especially like the shoes, because we have a cross country runner in the house, and she's running through muck, and the shoes have to get cleaned. So you can probably find it on Amazon.
Yeah, that'd be a good resource. Oh, there you go.
And do you use it for your bike shoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Because that came up as like there was a list of tips that I kind of thought I'd write together, and I haven't tried all of these because I'm gonna go with the baking soda and the aromatherapy, and I'm hoping that will work. So obviously they were saying ensure that they dry fast enough. So then people were bringing up about the shoe dryers. There was something else that came up called a boot banana.
Boot banana. Ooh, I gotta look
Which
this up.
literally, it looks really cool because it looks like a banana. And when it starts to get used too much, it starts to turn brown. So you know when to get another boot banana.
Amazon has those too. Original shoe deodorizers.
There you go.
Huh.
That looked pretty neat.
Interesting.
I'd go with the dryer or the shoe dryer.
Yeah. I'll put a link in the show notes here. That's a good one. But yeah, the boot banana does look pretty interesting.
What else was coming up? Well, I think as the pharmacist in me would say, use an antifungal athlete foot powder in your shoe, because most of the odors are going to come from the funguses and yeast on your foot in the damp when the shoe doesn't dry. But you would want to be careful that you're not going to go and cake your shoes. So I would dry them first and then maybe put a slight sprinkling before you use them. A lot of people speak out against using a hot wash. I don't know, do you guys ever, like my triathlon shoes they're all materials, so for me to put them in the washing machine in a pillowcase doesn't matter.
No. I've sprayed mine off with like a hose.
Yeah.
Because they're all muddy, but
not through the wash. I feel like that'd be kind of.
It sounds like it'd be really loud.
Yeah, boom.
If you tie it into a pillowcase, each shoe. So then you put them in the wash with everything else, and they just kind of bumble around. But I wouldn't do that with really good leather shoes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. Speaking of kind of the natural stuff, do you feel like I guess smells? I guess it'd be just how people smell. Does it come from like what we're putting in to the body? You know what I mean? Different bacterias and things that are coming out in our sweat. Does that anything to speak to on that front as far as that?
Well, I definitely feel that people that would sweat where you would notice the odor, I think that will be linked in part to their diet and health and how much they're detoxifying through the skin.
The skin, okay.
Because the skin should be the final route of detoxification. So if your systems are a little bit overloaded, and you'll notice it if someone hasn't eaten very well and then they do a hard training session, I feel that body odor can be changed by that, but I would probably notice things. But through the feet, I think it's more just the dampness and what's in the airborne with little yeast spores and fungal spores, or if there's any little bit of yeast on. I mean, we're covered in these things anyway, so I think it's more the opportunity for them in the shoe rather than what's coming out through our sweat. That's what I feel intuitively.
That makes sense.
But obviously, the healthier we are, the less we're gonna smell.
That's why your shoes don't smell, Mitch. Or we don't ride long enough. I don't know.
That's my problem.
Yeah, me too. Only a couple hours a week.
And it's going to be worse indoors because we're definitely sweating more down into our shoes.
Does Garon does he wear socks?
Indoors? Oh, hey.
I don't think. I mean, I would switch between socks and no socks. We can't keep saying Garen's the only problem here.
He's the case study.
I religiously wear socks.
I do too. I do too.
And I notice my socks are pretty sweat logged sometimes when I get done riding.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that's my shoe is it's leather and a synthetic material. So I'm wondering if it doesn't absorb much of it and most of it stays in the sock, because my shoes always seem kind of dry and they've got nothing.
Yeah. And is how humid is it there? Is it low percentage or high?
Well, I'm in my basement. It's like 60%, 65%.
Yeah.
At least from the humidifier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, these are really good solutions. So, between drying the shoes off for sure, an aromatherapy type essential oil solution, I think would be good, and always ordering a banana boot in the Amazon cart is just fun.
I think so. I was quite curious about that. It looked better than there was another option that came up, and two of them that looked a bit strange. I'm not sure I'm prepared to try them. One of them was using cat litter.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
You know what? That actually makes sense, though. I mean, if you think about it, because it's gonna absorb all the moisture, then it's got to deodorize it, right? Yeah. And it probably also has antibacterial stuff in it as well because of what you're trying to deal with. Yeah. And if it's a triathlete, it's designed for urine.
You can just pee right into it. Just make sure you don't have cats, because they're gonna find your shoes and pee in them too.
Yeah.
That's true.
But it's probably more likely.
It's pretty more likely that you have the cat litter than the next one, which was using denture tablet soaking.
Denture tablets.
Which would be the same again. It would have the anti.
Yeah.
anti-growth.
You crumble it up and put it in there, or
don't
what?
you need the water? You need the water.
You
for the
probably
tablet.
soak it completely. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
All right. You had something else cooking over there.
So for people, this was just one. A lot of the time, cold sores. We get them when we're exposed to the elements. And if anyone's vulnerable to cold sores, I think even being out in direct sun, or a lot of the time, you're going to be wiping your mouth, wiping your nose, and even that trauma to the skin can lead to people that are prone to cold sores getting more. So this is a natural item with lysine in there and a lot of antibacterial and antiviral herbs and ingredients. Nice. And it's called Quantum Health Lip Clear Lysine Plus. So that's a really good product rather than using a medical antiviral, which a lot of the times doesn't work for people. So that's just a tip for folks. And then just the other items I have here lead into are kind of one of our main topics, which we're talking about, which is moving slightly away from the gels and the sports drinks on the bike and using more natural products. So Training Peaks brought out a really good article, and we'll delve into that now in a second. But an item I've been using on the bike lately is, well, I make my own because I'm celiac. So I make my own gluten-free pitta breads because they're healthier than the shop's bought ones. But these would be just your regular wholemeal pitta. And you could get a white one if you prefer to have slightly less fiber in there. And then just adding something like really good honey, a really good nut butter. This is an almond, but you could use a peanut, and if you want, a banana. So that is giving you fast release carbs, slow release carbs, a little bit of fat to give you a more sustained energy release, which is perfect for training. But I find on sportives, because I'm not going out to race the whole thing like a TT, I found that it's really, really good. But the one tip I would give is I found that when you fill the pitta, even if you cut it, it sort of tends to slide apart a little bit. So then you end up sticking your hand into a feed bag and not knowing, am I getting a bit of a banana or a bit of peanut butter here? So I found to just put maybe the honey and the nut butter in the pita bread, squish it together and keep the banana separate and maybe sort of feed that way, I found worked a little bit better. And another one it's probably a bit more on the sugary side, but I have found if people have a sweet tooth, it's your opportunity to treat yourself on the bike. So that's nougat, which is
never had it.
And it has a little bit of fruit on it, and you can get those on Amazon and in the stores. It's full of sugar, so I don't recommend eating it the rest of the time. But regards training, it's good.
I'm still intrigued that in Ireland it's pitta bread instead of pita bread.
Yeah, it's 2 T's. I guess here it's pita with only 1 T.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I can't claim that we own pitta breads at all, can I?
No.
So I'm sorry. But that's just the way we call them here.
No, it's just interesting. I think I've never had. Have you ever had? I guess people do sandwiches, right, Mitch? Like they'll do.
Yeah, no,
So
I've actually you can make it pretty easy too. I've never tried making like whole wheat, but I've made
sourdough.
No, just like regular, pita bread. You basically make it, and then you just kind of, it just cooks and it kind of expands. Because we've made like homemade chicken gyro kind of grilled sandwiches before, so it's pretty easy to make. It's a really easy bread. But it is convenient
because it's much easier than I thought.
Yeah. Yep.
That's really interesting. All right, so on the tip of making homemade energy solutions for us on the bike. The article that Andrea is referring to is from Training Peaks, and the title is 4 New Natural Energy Gel Alternatives. It has a nice picture of dates right there on the front, which a lot of us have used on the bike, and great solutions, just looking for more whole food solutions. And there was one that Andrea, that caught your eye, excuse me. Did you want to kind of chat about that? And then maybe I'll talk about the maple syrup solution that I've had with the athletes that I have out here.
Yeah, I kind of tagged that article for myself, and the my spring energy I'm on EU, and I'm assuming there's a .com website. They look very interesting. Now, the way my mind thinks is, I think, wow, great product, really cool. I'm gonna go make my own. That's sort of my line of thinking, because I'm sure they're not that cheap to buy. But for convenience, the ingredients in there, they totally make sense. And I know sports nutrition for such a long time is telling us we need to use the straight sugars and gels, but in reality, and if you use these sort of homemade items, you will find that, surprisingly, they work really well in your system. And our stomachs, in fairness, if you look at what you eat at Christmas Day or on Thanksgiving, our stomachs really can handle more than we credit them with. Unless we're really on the wire with above threshold and max intensity, I feel a certain amount of digestive function is always going to be going on. So I think it's good to explore the more natural options, because then you're getting nutrition as well as fuel.
Yeah.
Rather than just fuel without nutrition.
I pulled up an ingredients list, and it sounds actually pretty tasty. So this is called their long haul. It's for any distance fuel, they claim. It reads like Ryland could probably read the ingredient list. My 6-year-old: rice, banana, peanut butter, honey, molasses, orange juice, oil, lecithin, chia seeds, vitamin C, citric acid, and sea salt. Pretty simple. This has got to be a pretty big packet. This is like a kid's squeeze bottle, I bet. But it looks pretty small in the picture. Yeah.
I mean, there looks like they're 100 calorie. Most of them around 100 calories, which is kind of what most of the gels are. I've used a lot of gels. They have some that are a little bit more calories. Like they have something called a spring speed nut, and it's like 235 calories.
I feel like you'd have to eat more though, because you'd want to get. Because it's slower digesting. I guess it just matters what time. Because I would eat solid stuff early on, and then kind of as I would go further. That makes sense. Yeah.
What's interesting though too is the brand is really seems like they're targeting the ultra runners. So you've got folks who are really like longer endurance events, right? Marathons Absolutely. And beyond.
No, this is a
good. The carbs are on the lower end of the scale though. We're looking at a 15 gram rather than most 30, gels are just 20, shy of 30. Yeah. And I would. If it was, if you were doing an event with intensity, do we need the chia seeds and the nut butter in there, or are they just slowing down digestive function? So they definitely are a training item, and then I would really test them in training to see if they're going to suit you. But regarding how much you can take on, so for example, marathon running, you really want to optimize every mouthful, because no one running a marathon is going to be wanting to eat very much to get in as much as they need. And you compare that to our Mortons, which are looking at getting in close to 100 grams of carbs per hour. So it is a trial and error thing, but for training, for definite, and even to look at their ingredients for inspiration about what you might want to try yourself.
But what's also interesting is so if you think of like a brand like Goo, right, and it's just basically flavors and it's all the same. I mean, they've got the Goo Roctane, which is like their high performance, and they've got the normal Goo. But these guys, they've got it broken down into kind of different purposes. They've got Long Haul, which is a different mixture, and Power Rush and Hill Aid and Electro Ride and Speed Nut. So it's interesting. They've got formulations which I think they're trying to target to different parts of the race or different uses, instead of just being a pure
everything.
100. It's different than just 100 calories of carbs and sugars that you're going to get in Goo. It's designed a little bit differently here.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I haven't seen this come up. I clicked on it and it looked really interesting, but then I feel like it'd be a pretty dense whole food source. You're saying, Mitch? Go ahead.
Before we got on, I was making the comment that at some point, don't you just make this yourself? But I can also, Jason knows me and Andrea as well. I mean, this is a lot simpler to for the convenience.
Yeah.
Get a big box of these, and depending on what you're doing that day and
just go
race or whatever, you can just grab it and go, and it makes life simple. I mean, it's all about convenience these days. I think we all all know how hard things are.
Yeah.
Thinking about you, Mitch, and that your daughter swims, these would be an amazing product for young athletes.
You're right.
Move them away from the monsters and different things. They're awesome.
Because they're not going to sit down and eat. Like, it'd be like, here, just swig this down, and just boom, you're good to go. And it's whole food sources, and we've seen all the pictures of all the parents, just in our group, like what they're serving at these meets. It's just all kinds of just fast food, junk food. Just to put all those calories in.
Well, yeah, because the kids all get goodie bags, so they sit there and they just gorge on sugar for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh!
Gotcha. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
I guess the other one down the way, which we have some experience down here in at least Southern California, is Untapped. A lot of riders really enjoy that. Kind of on the same bridge of the Stinger waffles that have been around for a long time. But what really made them popular was just pretty much packeted maple syrup. Obviously from a good source, a whole source, no high fructose corn syrup in a gel type situation. So this is kind of on the other spectrum where it's very fast digesting, right? So we're on like the glucose, sucrose side, where with the maple syrup, that's what you're trying to get in there. It's really interesting. A lot of riders who don't do well with gels do okay with this, but for the same reason people don't do well with hydration with maltodextrin in it, for example, and dextrose and all that sort of thing, all built, or fructose, excuse me, and they do really well with more simple sugar. So this is a pretty good source. A lot of people just put it in a gel flask, which Mitch made a comment earlier. The only thing about it does get warm either way, and warm maple syrup, I don't know, on a day like that, I don't know, but I don't really ever eat maple syrup cold otherwise, so I don't know why I wouldn't like it on the bike. I guess I haven't had it that way. Have either of you tried it?
No, it sounds very sweet after a while. Does anyone report that?
Yeah. These are the same people who eat like donuts after their coffee ride. So,
the sweetness wouldn't bother. I mean, but I guess well into a ride, I think it would. I mean, I think back to the half Ironman I did in near the end when it was hot and everything was. But I think anything's gonna taste bad at that point.
But gels are like that too. Hours in, and you've got them in your pocket or something, and then you're trying to put down a hot gel. It's not tasty either.
I would think that the maple syrup might be a little thinner consistency at that point. It may be easier because I remember the gels. They could just get nasty and sticky and.
They've got some cool flavors. Lemon tea, maple-aid. They've got a coffee
I saw the ginger in there too.
Yeah. That's interesting. So yeah, they've got all kinds of nutrition goods. But yeah, so all these choices give us opportunities to have whole food sources. We've talked about rice cakes before and all these things that you could take. You can easily take a banana. There's a lot of things that you can have. But if you're stopping, that sort of thing, you've got an opportunity to have whole food. And I think that is one thing that we advocate for. If you have the chance, you're going for a ride, you have a chance to stop, eat some whole food. You're on the go, you got rocket jets on, you're trying to, put the race on TT style, then you've got to get some rocket fuel for what you're trying to do. Pick the right fuel for the job that you're trying to do that day, right?
Great.
Yeah, actually last weekend I did a big long sportive and I wrote a plan for myself to practice race nutrition because it was going to, like, Dunleary's going to be a really long bike ride, even though it's just 90k. So this was 110. I thought this is perfect.
Nice.
And I wrote my plan, and I'm a big believer you need to write your plan because you have no idea how much food it takes to get those carbs in. And also your bike section is your opportunity. You're not ever going to want to eat a huge amount when you hit that marathon or half marathon. So I had my plan, and I actually have discovered for myself, and I see it for a lot of athletes, a lot of people just don't want to eat the sweet stuff. So I did my pita breads with my banana and my nut butter, and I actually was loving eating them, and I was sticking on my plan with my precision hydration.
Nice.
And then we got to the food stop, and one of the girls who's helping organize the race had a big stall of gluten-free foods, and they had these little cakes with pink frosting. So I broke. And I was in a hurry because I knew I had to chase Garen, who's really, really fast. So this little muffin full of pink frosting anyway went in my feed bag. Don't ever do that. It doesn't work. You're just going to be licking your fingers and getting stuck in a load of frosting for the rest. But I found using the more savory approach, my energy was fantastic. My stomach was great. No problems with acidity. So it's quite surprising. Whereas the science says, no, that isn't going to work. You need to have the fast, straight sugars. So we need to explore and play around with different options in training. And it makes training fun. I
think that's where training races like that, not only to train like for your effort, like, Mitch was talking about getting close to his 10-mile race goal, but also to train your fueling. If you are going to fuel for that 10 miles, which I think it's long enough to be able to have some sort of fueling in between there, you make sure that you train that and figure out how much you can get in. That's really important.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's see what else came across this week. This article, which a lot of people chat about, is the use of Super Tuck. We've talked about this in real life and people using it next to you, like at team camp, and how dangerous it feels and looks, the Eric Dennings of the world. But I feel like it's just getting used more and more, with the Tour de France this year and in the years past, and how people really make up big, huge gaps going really crazy downhills. What are your guys' thoughts of using this? I feel like we're more of a conservative group, and I don't use it much at all. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm going to ask from the non-cyclist side, what is a super tuck?
There you go. Got it, Mitch?
No, you got it.
Okay. So essentially you're sitting on your seat would be your normal tuck, or you're kind of in the drops. You'd put yourself kind of on the lower part of the drops, and you'd tuck yourself down. You'd want to get your forearms flat to the ground, similarly to like the TT position. Further down is you actually take yourself off the seat and put yourself on the top tube, and you'd be able to put almost your chest on your tops, on your bar tops. So it essentially gets you even lower center of gravity. Some riders are able to pedal. I feel like those are ones with really short legs, because if you get any closer to the bottom bracket, it really kind of holds you up. But really, essentially, it makes you more aerodynamic. You tuck your knees in. Your hands would be close together on the center of the bar and the center of the stem. So essentially, you become one with the bike, allowing you to become more aerodynamic. And that's where riders are finding the time essentially on these positions, and they'll get up. So we saw a stage towards the end of the Tour de France this year. He'd get down into the tuck, and the speed would just ramp up. He'd wait to the very, very last minute on the outside of the turn, brake, and I think a lot of it is now coming from maybe now that I think about it, is like disc brakes, being able to brake last minute, boom, turn in, he got up, he'd sprint, boom, back into the tuck, and just get all this speed, and the bikes are just getting faster and faster, and then safer, I guess, with these higher speeds. That's where disc brakes really come into play.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point about the disc brakes. And I mean, I've become much more conservative on downhills. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I was ever less conservative, but I have no desire to hit the deck much anymore. It's just, I mean, every time you hit the deck, especially as you get older, it's just weeks of trying to get back into it. So I'll give up that time and take a casual descent and catch up when I can.
Yeah. Did you feel anybody taking risk on the downhills from the Sportive that you were at a week or two ago, Andrea, or people were just kind of going down? Or is there hills in Ireland?
We had some quite sharp descents, and we had gusting side winds.
Oh yeah,
and loose gravel. So I wasn't taking any chances. But some other people that I know had great fun on the descents, but I was just getting whooped all over the place. So I'm going to be where I'm going to get the breaks.
Yeah. You'll end up in a bed next to Chris Froome. The wind and falling off your bike. So yeah, I think go ahead.
I mean, it's fun watching. I mean, anyone who watched Stage 19 and when he, I mean, it's amazing watching people just make up time on the descent. Yeah. I mean, you've got to have guts, and I mean, it's as fun watching the guys make up time on a climb. It's equally fascinating to watch the tactics. And
at my last Fondo, it was about a 30-minute descent, and there was plenty of people that came by pretty quickly. But you've got to really be going, because even the group that came by, I was watching my video, and even the group that came by and we didn't see them for a lot of it, we were still able to catch them pretty closely to the bottom. So you've really got to be pushing it. It's not just tucking in. You've got to get up out of every corner. Anytime the speed comes down, you got to bring it back up. You've got to bring up, because the average speed has got to stay high in order for a group behind you to not catch. So
you need to have good skills, practice, getting in and up, and then keeping the momentum going. And are you in less control of your bike when you're tucked in?
Yeah, anytime you get closer to the stem and you're holding kind of further, and really it doesn't allow you a solid base to hold. I mean, maybe they're actually, I don't think they're sitting. It doesn't make any sense. But to hover around on top of the tube, it would be really tough too, because you're not getting any rest either. So it really depends on what you use your downhill for. Some people use it for a downhill as some rest to recoup and recover, but they're using, obviously in the race situation, they're going. So interesting. Yeah. And so, I guess moving forward to our last topic today is the announcement of Zwift Academy, which was about a month ago. I was part of rolling that out with that, and we've all had some experience with the workouts and the Facebook groups and all the hype around Zwift Academy, and it starts next Monday, I believe, August 3rd, I believe, 3rd or 4th, something like that. And so I'll pull up the link here, but I did want to bring up some couple things, but maybe just first talk a little bit about our experiences with the last couple years. Last year, I believe a lot of us did it, and the year before definitely kind of their title year. What were your guys' feelings around in the coming years, or in the last couple years? Excuse me.
I did it.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I didn't do it last year. It didn't fall in line with racing, and also I ended up sick. I did it the year before. Just as I started in my off after racing, and I found it really good, actually. The sessions are hard, so you learn a couple more levels that you have. I think you need to time well when you're choosing to do it. You need to probably ease off if you're a triathlete. You're run and swim a little bit. Manage your recovery, space it out well. I did follow some friends doing it last year, and also the forums, and a lot of the same topics are coming up, like especially with nutrition, which is what I would notice. People doing low carb diets, people trying to lose weight at the same time. No one's prepared to listen to common sense, I found. So people just burning themselves out and not, the quote, fuel for the work. These are the sessions that you need to fuel for. And if you are trying to lose weight, manage your nutrition quite sensibly. So, but there's a huge camaraderie and support with the online groups. I think it's something that's worth doing for the experience.
I've got to believe with the numbers they're looking at, they're going to get a lot of folks who've never really done a lot of structured training, right? Yeah. As Zwift has grown and there's a lot more people on the system or on the platform, it'll be interesting to see how many of those folks maybe get inspired to have a more structured approach to their cycling and really kind of take a bite of the apple and want to get more involved in the sport. I think there's going to be a lot of folks who struggle, but I think they've also dialed back.
They have
some of the workouts, but there's a plus and a minus there too. Because I mean, I think are they really getting a lot out of it? We'll see. I mean, it's a tough thing. I think that Zwift is trying to do. I give them some credit for doing it, but I think it's going to be tough for 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a big cross section of the population. That's what they're expecting.
That's what they're expecting. We'll see.
We'll see.
Numbers are big. So they're talking in the release. They're talking about this being their 4th year of the mass training global talent ID thing. Last year there was 35,000 men, total men and women that took part. That's a big jump from 35,000 to 100,000. I think more so looking at, I think we were delving in last year about how many completed it, meaning did all the workouts and that sort of thing, and that percentage is drastically lower. And let me go over to the page. And so I guess the biggest thing is that there is a pro contract that is given out. So the Academy does provide a way for these talented riders to get noticed by these pro teams. Last year's women's winner was Elsa Harris. She had given some comments about her experience. And so for the men's team, it's the U23 dimension data for Quebeca Continental team. And so and then moving down, the semifinalists receive some great things like a Tax Neo as you kind of get whittled through, and confirming the dates, it's August 5th to September 29th. And the total workouts are 8 workouts and then 4 rides or races. And I guess going back in the years, last year's it was in fact it was dialed back. It was a lot more kind of testing powers, so for the people that were watching to be able to see what people's 1 minute power, 5 minute power, and that sort of thing. But the first 2 years were pretty rigorous, and it was a lot of hard workouts. And that was the year that you did it, Andrea, and a lot of people were having trouble balancing it. Last year, for a lot of people who came from a structured workout regimen, it felt very empty and very kind of hodgepodge missed because they were more used to kind of a more whole approach. So people were looking for that. I think that's one thing where the Endurance Lab or a group could help to kind of fill in the holes, because what happens is people do, let's say, 8 workouts over 4 to 5 weeks, then they do races on top of their workouts, and you're now looking at not just 2 or 3 hard workouts where they were just doing 2 or 3 hard races. You're doing 4, and then people are getting burned out, or they're doing all the workouts within like the first 2 or 3 weeks, which is silly. So, but that's kind of how, social media pushes and kind of everyone does. So
that's interesting. They've cut them back so much because if I was talent hunting, like I know from the experience we had in the second Zwift Academy, and I assume it must have been the same for the first, I had to sit down and look at what was required of me and plan it out so that I was able to manage it. And that's a skill you actually are trying to find in someone.
Yeah.
So 8 is hardly any workouts.
Yeah.
So they're missing part of their talent hunting, and maybe because it was hard. I think it should be hard. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too, remember the second component of this is, and looking at the people they've chosen in the past too, it also has to do with personality. It has to do with like social media connection. It has to do with their ability to sell themselves kind of later. And we see this, we've talked about this like when, during Kona time and, people having personality and that sort of thing. So it's kind of the whole thing, the whole sellable project. There are certain, if you are the gamer in you on Zwift, there are game unlocks. That means things that you can get in the game, things like socks and shoes and clothing and a Zwift Academy kit. So those are pretty interesting. And a lot of the rides are driven or led by leaders in the community. So if you're opted to get in there, you get a chance to kind of meet some of the community leaders that have built Zwift all these years. So I think I'll probably get a chance to jump on, maybe stream a couple of the workouts, put our couple cents. I was going to put a poll out to our group at Team ODZ to see how many of them are doing it, to see if there's something that we could help out with, make sure people are keeping their heads on straight this year, So cool. Let's see what else we've got. That's it. Yeah, so we've got our articles here. Was there anything else before you jump out today, folks? We're good.
No.
So we've got a good chat about some natural energy alternatives. A couple links in the show notes for you to see what was in that article, as well as kind of our ideas. Some conversation about the Super Tuck. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you use it and if you feel it's a benefit or you just feel like it's dangerous. And then lastly, we talk a little bit about Zwift Academy that's coming up. Let us know if you're taking part of it. If you're looking for some help, we're more than happy to jump in. We have done a booster program in the past, so we'll be reaching out and check out our website for that information. Also, if you have any questions, you can jump in the forum and let us know there. And then lastly, thank you for joining us today here in the Coach's Corner. And if you like what you hear, and we would love if you were to share this with your friends, but if you have any questions and are interested in hearing us talk about it, send it over to coaches@endurancelab.fit. Don't forget to also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Endurance Lab and online at endurancelab.fit. We will see everybody next week.
See you guys.
Later.